Council to order. This is the March 9th meeting, and I'm going to move the agenda around a little bit because if you notice, we have our fiscal year 20 audit report out this evening. And so our auditors are on the call or on the Zoom meeting. So I'd like to ask Aaron Bowles if he would introduce our new auditing team for them to make their presentation this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to preface this discussion with how pleased I've been with this whole process and the amount of information I've gained along the way. The depth of review of the city's financial operations this year, I think, far exceeds anything that's been done in many of the prior years that I can see as far as documentation that's been provided to the prior auditors. But the council should really take comfort knowing that the numbers in this report are quality representation of the city's finances. So I'll just introduce our auditing group that we hired this year. This is their first year. It's RFH Group or RFH CPAs out of Lexington. On the call, we have Kevin Fisher. He was our senior managing auditor. He kind of controlled the whole audit along the way. And then also on the call is Brad Hayes. He is a managing partner of RFH CPA. So with that, I'll let them get started and run through the audit for you.
Yes, Aaron, thank you for the introduction. My name is Kevin Fisher. I'm with RFH CPAs. I was the in-charge auditor for the city's fiscal year 20 audit. This was our first year performing the audit. I worked under the direction of Brad Hayes, who's on this call as well. Brad, did you want to say anything?
No, just I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. I do want to thank Aaron and his staff. They did an excellent job. As a first-year staff trying to help us get through the audit. We certainly can't do what we do without his help. So just want to say thanks for them. But with that, I'll just turn it over to Kevin. He did most of this, so I'll let him lead you through it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Yeah, I do want to start before I go over the report. I want to thank specifically Aaron Bowles for all of his hard work. Whenever it's the first year for an audit firm, it's always a lot more challenging. It's always a lot harder. There's a lot more questions. Aaron was extremely responsive, and anytime we needed something, he got something to us right away. We really appreciated that. This year has especially been challenging for us with COVID. We had a lot of different issues with scheduling, and Aaron was very accommodating with that. So I appreciate that. Thank you for that, Aaron. With that being said, I believe you guys have in front of you two documents, I hope. One is the audit report itself, and the second is a letter that we issued to the council at the conclusion of the audit. I'm going to go over both. I'm going to try to go over both as quickly as possible. There is just a lot of information in the report. I could have you guys here all night if I wanted to. So I'm going to try to go quickly and hit on the high points. First, I want to start with the audit report itself. What you should be looking at on the first page, it should say at the top, City of Bardstown, Kentucky financial statements. If you go to the first page of that, right at the beginning of that is the independent auditors report. The independent auditors report is us expressing opinion on the financial statements. There's a lot of verbiage in the report that doesn't change a whole lot year over year. Generally, what we gravitate towards is at the very bottom of that first page where it says opinions. And I'll just read that. I'll read that sentence there under opinions. It says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the city of Bardstown, Kentucky as of June 30, 2020, and the respective changes in financial position and where applicable cash flows thereof for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. What that sentence means is that's a clean audit opinion. That's as good of an audit opinion as you can get on your financial statements. That means what we're saying at the conclusion of our audit, we've determined that all the numbers that follow this report, in our opinion, are fairly stated in all material respects. There's a lot more that's included in the verbiage in this auditor's report, but that's the biggest thing, okay? Directly, I'm going to take you through, if you look at this report, it's 66 pages, so a lot of information. I'm going to take you quickly through some of the other things in it, and then talk about a report on the city's internal controls. Directly after the auditor's report is the management's discussion and analysis. This is management's report. This is Aaron's report. Our role in it, and I'm on page 3. Our role in this report is to read through it, make sure the numbers agree with the financial statements that followed. And we have done that, and we agree with the numbers that and what he is saying in the MD&A, the management's discussion and analysis. If you flip to page 12, page 12 is the beginning of the financial statements. The city is required to report 2 separate sets of financial statements. One is on full accrual and one is on a modified accrual basis. On page 12 is as of June 30, 2020, is the city's financial statements for the city, and it's entirely on a full accrual basis. So it shows the city's debts, it shows the city's capital assets, it shows the required recording of the pension liability. It has everything included. If you go to page 14, page 14 is the beginning of the fund financial statements, where it shows the city's individual funds on a fund basis. So a little bit different in that on page 12, it was the city's financials in its entirety. On page 14, it breaks it out for you. If you go to page 19, 19 is the notes to the financial statements. The notes to the financial statements support the financial statements. So it gives you information about the numbers that are in there. So it's going to tell you, financial statements will show how much debt the city has. The notes will tell you who's the debt with, what are the interest rates, how much does the city have to pay in the future and in what years. On the pension liability, where does that number come from? What are the assumptions? The footnotes give you a lot of good information to support the financial statements. I won't say anything other than that, just for time purposes. And then, so the footnotes to the financial statements go from page 19 to 42. A lot of information there. If you skip to page 43, this is the required supplementary information on page 43. This information includes the budget to actual comparison for the general fund, and it includes a bunch of information that's required for the pension and OPEB liability. I don't want to go over it, but I just want to point out that that information is there for you to review. On page 54, give you a second to get there. I know I'm moving kind of fast. On page 54 is shows the individual funds, the individual non-major funds. This is where you're going to find information on the road aid fund, the land acquisition and building, law enforcement. These are the funds other than the general fund and the utility operations fund. So this gives you for fiscal year 20 that financial information. Finally, if you skip to page 59, and it's on page 59, it's not going to have the page number on the bottom because of our letterhead. So you have to go to page 58 and then go to the next page to get to 59. Page 59 is our independent auditors report on internal control. As auditors, we are required to not only express an opinion on the city's financial statements, but to review and assess the city's internal controls. And if we identify any deficiencies, to report them to the mayor and to the city council. This report is where you'll typically hear the word finding. Okay, so when you hear the city had 5 findings or 11 findings or whatever, this is where you're typically going to find that. For the fiscal year 19 audit, I believe there was a total of 11 findings. For the fiscal year 20 audit, there's a total of 2 findings, which I'm going to cover last because the findings are outlined at the very end of the report. So let me skip to the next report and then I'll go over those findings. On page 61, the city expended over $750,000 in federal funds this year because of the KIA loan program. Specifically, there was $2.6 million in loan proceeds for the Potter Shop pump station and to upgrade the sewer lines. That triggered a required compliance audit for federal funds. So this report is not something you necessarily see every year, but was required this year. At the bottom of the page 61, it says, opinion on each major federal program. In our opinion, the city of Bardstown, Kentucky complied in all material respects with the types of compliance requirements referred to above that could have a direct and material effect on each of its major federal programs for the year ended June 30, 2020. What that means is the city met the compliance requirements that came along with the federal funds that it received and expended. So that is a good report on the city's federal funds. On page 63, it summarizes all the federal funds that the city expended for fiscal year 2020. Specifically, you can see on page 63, the bulk of that was for the KIA loan program, which was $2.6 million. On page 64 is where it talks about the findings that we had with the current year audit. As I mentioned a minute ago, in the prior year audit, the city had a total of 11 findings. This year we had a total of 2 that we identified that we consider to be deficiencies that warrant reporting as a finding. The first one it starts on the bottom of page 64. The first one is related to the previous CFO, whose situation you all are well aware of. It says the city's segregation of accounting duties and related compensating controls was not adequate to ensure cash utility payments and occupational license fees were recorded accurately in the financial statements. I'm not going to read everything that we wrote on this finding, other than to say that we did not identify anything additional than what was already previously identified, that the city had already identified. This finding is repeated because the previous CFO's tenure leaked into our fiscal year under audit. So our period of audit is that we were engaged to audit was July 1st, 2019 through June 30, 2020. That previous CFO was employed into September 2019. So whenever you have a repeat finding, you don't like that because if you get a finding, you expect it to be corrected. In this case, based off of the nature of when it was identified, there was not a way for it to not be repeated, unfortunately. The mayor and Aaron has provided a response, and the expectation would be that for the fiscal year 21 audit, that finding will not be repeated. The second finding is a new finding that we identified that hadn't been pointed out in the past. It says the city's budget ordinance for June 30, 2020 did not include the city's non-major governmental and proprietary funds. So if you look at the June 30, 2020 ordinance, it had only the numbers for the general fund and the utility operating fund. it was clear to us in reviewing the budget ordinance and reviewing the budgeting process that the mayor and the council, the CFO, everybody reviewed and approved all the funds of the city. That was clear. However, the other funds, the non-major funds, aren't shown in the ordinance. And that, in our opinion, is a compliance issue that needed to be corrected going forward. And we have that reported as a compliance finding here. And on page 66, there's a response there. And in working with Aaron, I believe that issue will be resolved going forward as well. That's about as quick as I can go on that report. Like I said, it's 66 pages. You also have in front of you another document. It's 3 pages. And this is what we call communication with governance letter. This is an opportunity for auditors to communicate certain information with those charged with governance, the mayor, the city council, that might not show up in the auditor's report. For example, did we have any difficulties? Did we have any disagreements? Were there any audit adjustments, things of that nature? The verbiage in this letter, again, doesn't change a whole lot year to year. I'm happy to report we didn't have disagreements. We didn't have difficulties. We didn't have anything like that to report. The letter does show a couple audit adjustments, which we have listed. A couple of the audit adjustments were, just a change in how we thought how things should be recorded at year end versus how the city had been doing it previously. And one adjustment just appeared to be an oversight. So we listed those adjustments, but we did not consider that to be a finding or a control deficiency. In this letter, we will also point out things that we think are opportunities for improvement that don't raise to the level of being a finding. And we've listed 2 recommendations in this letter. One is related to the monthly bank reconciliations. We noted that there was not an individual at the city that was reviewing the monthly bank reconciliations. So we've made a recommendation that an individual other than the preparer of the bank reconciliations review all reconciliations to ensure they are completed within 10 to 15 days after month end. We noted all the reconciliations were completed and they were accurate. That's a recommendation to improve the city's controls. And then we also noted we made a recommendation related to outstanding checks for the CFO to periodically check on the listing of checks that haven't cleared and follow up on those that haven't cleared to see if they need to be voided, reissued, or turned over to the state as unclaimed property. So that's everything that I wanted to cover tonight. And I'm happy to take questions, whatever questions that you all have.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Does any of the council members have any questions of Kevin? Or I'm sure Kevin also would let you certainly allow you to call him or email him as well if there's some kind of major detail that would require some research on his part. So does any of the council members have any questions this evening of Kevin on his report?
No, not at this time, Mayor, but I may look this over a little bit more thoroughly, and if I see anything that I think that I might have a question about, I'll be glad to give Kevin a call.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else? I would just like to say to Kevin and his team at RFH, we were very impressed. I'll echo what Aaron said. Opening the meeting this evening, they did a great job on this. I would like to just give a little historical perspective for Aaron's behalf, and Kevin touched on it. Last year's audit for fiscal year 19 was through fiscal year 19, which was through June 31st of 2019. Aaron was not hired until December of 2019 after we discovered the theft in September of 2019. So last year's audit really was a reflection on the previous CFO and certainly not Aaron. And obviously the auditor found 11 findings primarily as a result of what had happened during the previous CFO's time here. And I think it shows a lot on Aaron's behalf that he really, in this year's audit, he only served 7 months of the 12-month period that just got audited. So to go from 11 findings to 2, and one of which was really a carryover situation from the previous CFO, and at a time when Aaron wasn't even our CFO, I think shows how hard that he worked to get our accounting and financing situation straight for this past year. And, the other side of this, and I think Kevin would appreciate this, Aaron came not from a governmental accounting background. He came from a banking background and inherited a very difficult situation. And, to only have 7 months to come in to try to get things in order from the previous audit, was really, I think he did a great job, and I know it'll get better. You don't have a career in one type of business where accounting is done a certain way and move into another one. It's quite different, and know all the ins and outs overnight. So I think having a team like RFH for Aaron to call on and rely on, I'm not trying to speak for Aaron, but just wanted to give the people maybe watching this meeting and the council members a perspective on the timing of Aaron's employment and the timing and period in question here for the audit. The one finding that's new this year, as you might notice, last year it was not a finding of the previous CFO, so we were not aware of the compliance issue with the non-major funds, although we had always reviewed them and in our work sessions and our budget discussion. So because of that, that's why we're having a second reading this evening on the recommendation of RFH to make sure that is incorporated in our budget ordinance. So Kevin, I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but Aaron brought that to us immediately, and we'll be doing a second reading this evening to bring that into compliance.
Yeah, we had talked through it specifically regarding when we had discussed that it would be a compliance finding and issue, and we talked through it to make sure we were on the same page as far as what was required, so that it would be corrected.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything else for Kevin? Appreciate him and his team working this evening, but this time of year for accountants, 6 o'clock is still early at night for you guys. So
I'm not going home after we hang up here.
I didn't think so. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we thank you all and appreciate your input, and we'll certainly work on getting our house in order. It's, I think, great that we went from 11 findings last year to 2, and Aaron and I talked today, and our goal is to have 0 next year. So we hope we can make that happen. All right. Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Brad. All right, we'll move on then to bids and contracts, and I've got a change order for Public Works. I'll let Jessica Filiatro, our city engineer, cover these two. And
Yes, the first change order is for the Public Works shop for BCD Construction, and that change order is simply just an additional of 30 days additional time. There has been some delays with COVID-19, just getting lead time on the metal building. So that was the purpose, is just to ensure that there's enough time to get this building built, knowing that the building's still not even here yet. So I think if anybody drives by the location, you'll see that there has been the slabs completed. There's some framing that's going up, but again, we're still just waiting on that building. So they have a delivery schedule time, but again, just trying to ensure that we keep the contract, that we're following the contract and adhering to that. We felt that 30 days was an appropriate amount of time to give additional due to those delays.
Yeah, there's no money involved, and
Correct.
I know Joe Buckman and David Dones know about it. You know, these delays on materials and stuff in many industries right now are just really very difficult thing to manage. So it's not surprising that they're having some trouble getting their pre-engineered building delivered on time.
Right.
Yeah, very good point. I understand that fully. Yes. It's going on in the business these days. Yeah.
Become a significant issue throughout the industry for sure.
Yes.
Okay. If no one has any other, it's pretty clear. It's just a delay in getting that pre-engineered building delivered. If nothing else, it's not adding to the cost of the project. I'd ask for a motion to approve this request for increase of 30 days by BCD.
So moved, Mayor.
I have a motion by Councilman Dones. Is there a second?
I'll second
I'll
that,
second
sir.
that, Mayor.
I think that was Councilman Buckman.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion's carried. Jessica, you want to cover the service request for Sunset Village East?
Yes, this is just the standard request that all new subdivisions within the city of Bardstown or in the county that are requesting service for our water and or sewer make to the council, so that upon completion of the work, that the city will incorporate those water mains and sewer mains that are serving that new development, that we will take that into our public system. So they have submitted plans we're going to review. Obviously, we'll make sure that all specifications and design criteria are met for the development. And all of those that will also have to be submitted to the Division of Water for approval, and we will oversee that construction. So I see no issue with the city being able to provide these services to this development entitled Sunset Village East. Just a small background, this property is known as the Keene property. That is a vacant field, I would say just to the southwest of Wildcat Lane and to the northeast of Caney Fork Road. So there's kind of a field there. Some of that does front on US 62 Bloomfield Road, just to give you kind of across from American Fuji Steel. So that will give you a reference of where this development is being proposed.
Jessica, did you say this is going to be townhomes, or do you know yet, or single family?
It's a combination of duplex, threeplex, fourplex, and I'm not sure if there's a fiveplex on the, I think maybe one or two fiveplexes. So they're single family units. They will each be and have property lines running through the buildings, so they can be individually owned, but they are attached dwellings.
That's similar to what's off Templin,
Yes, it's similar to the
Templin and
design
Lincoln
that-
Way.
Yes, off of Lincoln Way on Riggs Boulevard.
Right, okay. Any of the council members have other questions of Jessica on this service request? All right, if none, then I'll ask for a motion to approve the service request by Sunset Village East as recommended by our city engineer.
I'll make that motion,
Mayor, if
Mayor.
I may, oh, sorry,
Oh, sorry, Betty, go right ahead.
I'll make that motion, and just to let you all know, that was where I grew up, and played in all of those fields back there.
Well, if they find any of your old first earrings you ever had, ask them to return them or something.
Please.
All right, we have a motion by Councilwoman Hart and a second by Councilman Hibbs. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. All right, everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the February 23rd council meeting. If there are no additions or corrections, we can approve them by unanimous consent. Okay, we've done the audit. I will call on Aaron Bowles now to give us the financial report for February.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, again. As you pull up your handout for the review, just to go over it again, but our general fund revenue last month was only $695,000. This month we skyrocketed up to $1.7 million in general fund revenue. So it was a really good month. Again, we were down last month because we were in the process of transitioning to our new occupational license fee software. So she was unable to process there for the last couple of weeks of January. But we got that switched over and she's up and running into the new upgraded software, and we recorded $1.1 million of occupational license revenue for the month of February. That takes that revenue line item to 83.6% of budget, or $3.9 million total year to date. So we're on track to exceed budget revenue in that line. So it's a real good position for us to be in. Some of the other remaining revenue line items, net profit, we got just a little bit again $42,000. That line stands, we're under budget. I'm hoping that with a lot of these being due April 15th, that this coming up month of March and even into April, that we can kind of make up some ground there. But we're only running at 36% of budget for net profits. But again, this could be COVID related. I'm sure that's impacted net revenue on many of the businesses within city limits. So we'll just kind of wait and see and see what we get coming in over the next couple of months. Just some other things, we received $437,000 from the government for reimbursement of our sidewalk program. So we have about $200,000, a little bit over $200,000 left to get from them. I think we should see that this month, hopefully, and that would be their final payment, and that project would be complete. Year to date, revenue was just a hair over $9 million, and we're running about 75.8% of budget for the year in general fund. On over to the expenditures, we're only around $589,000 for the month. 411 of that was salaries and benefits. Some other things of note this month, we purchased another police cruiser. Public Works building construction costs continued on. They were about $28,000. And then we had a repair to one of our fire trucks that got damaged. That was really expensive, $18,000 repair on that.
How much was that, Aaron?
$18,086. I don't remember what happened. I think Billy's on, but I don't know if something hit the side of it and caused some damage into that. But it was just expensive to repair that type of vehicle. Year-to-date expenditures were right around $7.4 million, running around 64% of budget for the general fund. Moving on to the combined utilities, we had just under $3.5 million of revenue, with almost all of that being service charge revenue from the different utilities. Rowan Creek project expenditures or revenue from the KIA loan was $253,000 for the month. Late fees continue to come in, but they're fairly minimal. Year-to-date revenue for the combined utilities is $25.6 million, running about 56% of budget for the year on for them. Moving on to expenses for the combined utilities. They were up quite a bit, really due to invoice timing again. The electric purchase was the major one. We skipped a month of January, and then February they hit us twice, just in timing of that. So total electric purchase for resale was $1.9 million posted in February, which was significant.
That was 2 months.
Yes, right, because we missed out on January's. Cable affiliate fees, charges we pay to all the providers, network providers, is up quite a bit. It's $512,000 for the month. That bill will go up. I think that might be the new norm for that, just based upon those contracts that we had to renew and the increases we're experiencing with them.
And what do you put in that other category? What kind of stuff goes in there?
That's like telephone bills, utilities, costs for all of the combined utilities, office supplies, technical supplies, equipment, things like that. And most of the things that I'm trying to put on the pie chart are just larger expenditures that are kind of one-time things that happen just throughout the month. The other is just the general operation of the departments as a whole. Year-to-date expenditures on the combined utilities, almost $28 million, or 58.4% of budget. And then on the next page, I tried to just, as you can see, our revenue or our expenditures are outpacing revenue this year. And going into this fiscal year, we knew that was going to happen. The budget ordinance that we approved showed us using $2.2 million of unrestricted reserves or our existing fund balance just to fund projects that were going to be happening that we didn't have loans for. So again, this is just a chart to kind of show you kind of where we're at now as of February and comparing that to where we were February of 2020. I can detail, if you want to go through each line, I can detail you what's happening in each line. Pretty much the main difference is last year this year we reduced our expenses by about $1.2 million where we saved having to make a bond payment, 2010 series bond, where we paid it off early. So we decreased expenses there, but we've also increased water and sewer project costs by $2 million. And then cable construction costs are up about $537,000. And as of February of this year compared to last year, our electric purchase for resale is up about $1.7 million. So all those gains kind of offset the savings that we were experiencing from not having to pay the bond payments. If there's any line item there you'd like to discuss, we can go through them. I don't want to go through each one if you don't want me to, but I just wanted to give you guys a good snapshot of kind of where we're at. We've got roughly $3.1 million of remaining unreimbursable capital project budget lines that we still have available to spend between our water, sewer, electric, and cable net projects. So there's still room for significant expenses coming out this year, but of course we still have 4 months of revenue to come into. Guys, had any questions on any of those lines you see? Okay. And moving on, finally, cash. Our overall cash balance is $240,000 to $15.5 million in cash on hand. General fund grew, of course, with that significant revenue we saw, but the operating dropped by almost the same amount. So just in the increased expenses. We have investment totals remaining the same, about $7.6 million. These are all coming up to mature next month, so I'll be having to renew those and probably move some of this excess cash that we have into an additional investment platform. Also, I'm hoping treasury yields are going up. I'm hoping the banks follow suit quickly before this comes to maturity, just so we can get a little bit better rate of return than what's currently out there, because it's not very good right now. So that's all I got. If you guys got any questions, just let me know.
Aaron, that $2 million that you talked about, when we set our budget, we knew because of the capital projects, we would be $2 million. We would use $2 million of these reserves to balance the budget. So I'm assuming that will lower this cash balance by the year end by that $2 million. Is that correct?
That's correct. So going in, once everything's finalized, and our fund balance will decrease as well as cash, but really it's going to be seen in our overall fund balance net position of the combined utilities. We'll see a decrease there.
Right. So we knew we had these reserves we could rely on to take care of those capital projects.
Yeah,
some of the
larger ones, we took out new loans on some of the larger sewer projects, but the main ones that we spent money on were the downtown water project. We didn't take a loan for that. The lagoon liner replacement out at Jerry Riley plant was significant, and we didn't take a loan for that replacement. And in the cable construction, we're expanding that network out into the county. Plus, he's been doing a lot of fiber work, getting a lot of these different areas of the city converted over to fiber, which is a pretty big undertaking in itself. That we're not funding that with loans either. So, just utilizing some of our cash to improve the infrastructure of the city.
Right. Well, I just wanted, it looks pretty strong right now, but I wanted people to understand that $2 million of that's already committed, roughly, for this fiscal year end.
Yes.
All right. Anyone else have any other questions of Aaron? Thank you, then, Aaron, for this good detailed report that you do each month for us. Thank you. Then I guess, Aaron, we'll go ahead and move into our second reading for the B 2021-02 our annual budget change for the non-major funds. And this will be the second reading this evening. So I'm going to ask our city clerk to do the second reading. We did the first reading at the last meeting. Gary Little would do that for us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Summary of ordinance number B 2021-02, annual budget of the non-major funds for the fiscal year July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021. An ordinance adopting the City of Bardstown, Kentucky annual budget of non-major funds for the fiscal year July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021, estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the non-major operations of the city government. Whereas an annual budget proposal and message has been prepared and delivered to the City Council, and whereas the City Council has received and reviewed the budget proposal and made desired modifications, now therefore be it ordained by the City of Bardstown, Commonwealth of Kentucky, Section 1, that the annual budget of the non-major funds of the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30, 2021 is hereby adopted as follows, as set forth below. And there's the chart included that shows the budgets, and the detailed part of the budget will be included in the full ordinance, this being a summary. So section 2, that any and all ordinances inconsistent with this ordinance are hereby repealed, and section 3, that this ordinance shall have taken effect July 1, 2020 after its passage and publication as required by law.
Okay, thank you, Gary. As was noted in our audit, this was a finding that the auditing firm found that we should do to clean up our budget amendment, or excuse me, budget ordinance. So this is a second reading. I'll ask for motions, and then if there's any discussion, we can do that after we have the motion. So need a motion to approve the summary of ordinance B 2021-02.
So move, Mayor.
I have a motion by Councilman Williams. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mayor.
I think that was Councilman Dones. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, excuse me. This is
Has to be a-
second reading. I've
each.
got to go. Yeah, let me go back. I always pull the trigger too fast on some of these second readings. So starting, I see Councilman Dones, so I'll start with you.
Aye.
And then Councilman Shekels,
Aye.
Councilman Williams,
Aye.
Councilman Buckman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Hart,
Aye.
and Councilman Hicks.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion is carried. Okay, and then I'm going to let Gary Little, our city clerk, discuss this first reading that we've brought you all this evening on our Simpson Lake boat fee ordinance, and then let him give you some background. You'll understand why we are making this minor change to the ordinance.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Yes, after talking with the staff up front, the CSRs at work, and they sell these boating permits, we realized that there were a couple of questions that were being repeatedly asked of them. For instance, when it says it includes our fishing privileges, most people would know that you need a statewide fishing license, but we didn't want to mislead anybody like they could fish on our lake without the state license. So we wanted to clarify that by adding that language. And then also for 65 and older, boating privileges have always been given to them. So you have a free boating and fishing privilege, but sometimes they're asking up front for permits for 2 or 3 boats. And so you don't know, who's getting those permits. Are they getting for their children also, whatever. So to clarify that with the language, to put it in writing so that we have a policy basically in the ordinance. That was the motivation behind these couple of changes.
We thought that some of the people were coming in maybe trying to game the system and asking for 3 free permits as a senior citizen, and we didn't have any language in here that didn't say clarify that you couldn't ask for 3. It just said free boating and fishing privileges. So I think the intent was always you had 1 free permit per senior, not to let them have a fleet of boats to which they could operate all free. So this is why we came up to try to clarify that. So that's where we are this evening. So if I could let someone introduce this is just a first reading. And then if you all have any other questions tonight, we'll certainly let you ask them. And we'll have Gary read the summary.
Mayor, I'd be happy to introduce ordinance number B 2021-03, which amends the ordinance for Simpson Lake for the city of Bardstown.
Thank you, David. All right. Gary, would you like to go ahead and read the full summary?
Yes, sir, thanks. Summary of ordinance number B 2021-03, an ordinance amending and adopting as amended chapter 91 of the City of Bardstown's Code of Ordinances for Simpson Lake. The City Council of the City of Bardstown, Kentucky does hereby ordain that chapter 91, section 9111 boating permits be amended as follows. Section 9111 boating permits. A, no person or persons shall launch any boat upon the lake without first obtaining an appropriate boat permit from the city, which shall be issued at City Hall during regular business hours. B, fees for permits. 1, permits for all boats shall cost Nelson County residents $50 per year and non-residents $100 per year. Number 2, permits shall include fishing privileges for all occupants. Add, however, a valid Kentucky fishing license is required. Number 3, all Nelson County residents strike over 65 years of age shall be given free boating and fishing privileges. And to add, age 65 or older are allowed 1 free boating permit annually. Number 4, all permits shall expire on December 31st of each year and shall be non-transferable. Number 5, licenses will be issued in duplicate and shall be affixed to the outside of the bow area of the boat on both sides in plain view.
All right. Thank you, Gary. Does any of the council members have any questions though before we move on? This is just a first reading, so we won't be taking action on it. The fee itself has been the same for as long as I can remember. We've not ever raised that, so this fee has probably been $50 for 20 years or longer. So we've not raised the fee, but our cost of monitoring the lake and keeping our boat up and maintenance around the lake obviously has gone up over the years, but we still are keeping the permit prices the same. So just changing the language to be clear.
Mayor, I just have an opinion here a little bit. I would think that this is just me thinking, but the guys or women that go fishing that are over age 65 actually be nice for us, because I think they will be more likely to pick up trash and take more care of the lake than younger people. But that's just my opinion.
Right. So. Well, this has been here for a long time, and so seniors are getting a free thing. And what a lot of people don't understand is, Simpson Lake is really not a recreational lake per se, and that's not what it was built for. Back in the, I guess, early 60s under Mayor Simpson, it's a water source and potable water source for raw water source for our entire city and county, and so that's its main function. So recreation, while it's permitted, that's not the basis. This lake's nowhere near the size of the typical recreation lakes, like Nolan or Rough River or Barron and Green and Taylorsville. And those lakes really are better to accommodate recreation than this lake. But we do permit some recreation and watercraft, but that's not its real purpose. Its real purpose is to provide raw water for all the citizens of Bardstown and Nelson County. So we got to really take care of this lake. It's not really all that big, but I think we do a pretty good job. So any other questions?
Mayor, I have a couple of questions just for my information only. Just out of curiosity, about how many licenses do we issue a year, or permits do we issue a year? And then do we have a way to track when somebody buys a permit and then they come in to get a second one? Do we have a way to track that they've already gotten their free one on the first
one? Aaron, I think, or Gary or Aaron, one has the normal amount of money we take in annually for these fees. I think, Gary, you want to answer that, or Aaron?
Yeah, we budget $10,000 a year in revenue on that. We don't usually take in that much. As of February 28th, we've taken in $32.50 roughly, which would be about 65 permits, and that's in revenue. Again, that doesn't cover the people that come in that are over 65 years old get permits. So I don't know the count of how many we actually have out there. So I can find out though and let you know.
That's not a major deal. I was just curious. But do we have a way to track when someone has gotten their free one for the year, if they come in again, that we can look up and see that they've already gotten their free one?
I'm pretty sure the CSRs have a running list of who's come in, because she'll ask for driver's license and take down all the information, relevant information that they have.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Betty. Any other questions? All right. It's the first reading. We'll take it up for a second reading in our next meeting. Excuse me. Any reports of staff or any committee meetings? Okay, I know, Bill, you all might be having a safety committee this week.
That's what I was gonna say. We're so excited to have our first in-person safety committee meeting this Thursday at 5 o'clock in the council, in the mayor's conference room. So it'll be good to have a meeting in person where we can sit down and look at each other and talk about what we need to talk about. So, so that'll be at 5 o'clock at the mayor's conference room on Thursday.
All right. Thank you, Bill. Then we'll move on to, excuse me. We'll move on then to board appointments. We've got 3 this evening. 2 of them are new appointments and one's a reappointment. The first one, BIDC. Kevin Smith has been nominated to fill the unexpired term for Dusty McCoy through June of 2023. Dusty has been appointed to some more state level and national level boards, and called to say he just doesn't have time to devote to the BIDC. And one of the things we talked about looking for the next person to take his position was that for as long as we can remember, we've never had one of our independent members who was representative of the bourbon industry. And all these years of the BIDC, we couldn't recall that any of the members either worked in that field or formerly worked in that field. And it's such a large part of our economy here. We felt it would be good to have someone who's connected to the bourbon industry, and Kevin fits that bill. Kevin has served on a number of committees here in Nelson County already. He recently finished a term on our tourist commission, but he serves on 4 other state level committees related to economic development, not all of it bourbon related. So he's a good fit for this position. He's currently Vice President of Bourbon Affairs for Jim Beam. He previously served as the plant manager at both Beam's Claremont facility and Boston facility. And prior to that, he was the president of operations for Maker's Mark and also a master distiller at Maker's Mark. So he's got a long time career in the bourbon industry, and he's wanting to, happy to be asked to serve and has agreed to serve. So I think he'll be a good fit to take Dusty's place on this board. So I'd like to, if anybody has any questions, I think most everybody on the council knows Kevin because he's active in our chamber. He's been active in the tourist commission, shows up probably for most every major event in our community, lives here in Bardstown. So I think most everybody knows him. So I would ask for a motion to approve his appointment to the BIDC board.
Be honored to make that motion, Mayor.
All right, we have a motion by David Dones, Councilman Dones. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Thank you. Second by Councilman Hibbs. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you. The second is Wickland Friends of Wickland Board, and our own Rashay Jennings has been serving on that board for several years, and she's due for a new appointment for a 1-year term. And so all of you know Rashay, and she's enjoys working on that board, and it's an important facility here. So I'd like to ask for a motion to approve Rashay's reappointment on Friends of Wickland Board.
So move, Mayor.
Thank you, Coach Williams. Councilman
I'll
Williams.
second it. I'll second it, Mayor.
Second by Councilman Shekels. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion is carried. The last one is the Historic Review Board. Summer Arlinghouse has asked to step down off that board. She really wanted to step down several months ago, but we didn't really have anybody that was willing to serve, so she stayed on until we found someone. And actually, Suzanne Hayden approached me about, I don't know, a month or so ago, and said that if there was any positions on any local committees or boards, that she would love to help the city of Bardstown, and kind of volunteered herself if something came up. So I let her know about this one, and she spent some time talking to Rashay, and she also talked to Jan Johnston to see what all was involved in this type of board, and has agreed to serve. And not everybody probably knows Suzanne, but Suzanne has moved here back in 2011. When she first moved here, she's lived in the historic district and in 2 different properties since she's moved here. She's a native of Kentucky, grew up in Lexington, went to UK, got her law degree from UK, and she's still practicing law, but she has an extensive career as a U.S. and international prosecutor, also a long career working for the Department of Justice, and still works as a consultant, an advisor, legal advisor for a number of organizations that have to do with international law. So I think Rashay and Jan both said it's really good whenever you have an attorney sit on some of these boards, because there's so many things that legal wise that get discussed and between the board members and the applicants, and it would be really good to have an attorney, even though most of it's not in planning and zoning or historical review type law. She's a very smart lady, quick study, and I've actually served with her on a committee for a short period of time, and I think she'll be an excellent addition to the Historic Review Board. Does anyone have any questions of Suzanne? I think I sent you all her bio, so I think you had a chance to read that. I just kind of summarized it from memory there.
Yeah. Mayor, I'd like to reiterate a couple things you did say. By Suzanne being an attorney, I think that's a nice background to have on that board. When I served on that board once before, we did have an attorney. That was a very, very nice person to have there. I also think that we're required to have so many professional type of people, backgrounds. And I think she also feels that niche for us on there too. But if I could, I'd like to say something about Summer, who's retired or asked to move off. She, to me, we're going to miss her on there. And my reasons being that I think Summer was always tried to make things work. And she went way out of her way to always, to try, but she also did it within our laws and our rules. I think we'll miss her. She was very talented. She was very dedicated. But I think Suzanne also will bring us, will be a good person for our board. I'm very happy for this. I think it's going to be good.
All right. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any other comments about this nomination? or questions?
Mayor, I would just like to say that I know Suzanne as well. She's a very, very bright lady, and I think she's wanted to get involved in something in Bardstown for quite a while. So I'm glad that we found a niche for her.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, sometimes you say Historic Review Board, they start running. I can tell you when I've approached people about this over the years, they're like, oh, no, I don't want that. Susan really, I think if she had her choice of all those different types of boards, that was the one she wanted. So it just kind of worked out when Summer said she wanted to step down. And I said, well, Susan, here it is. So, all right. Anyone else have any other comments? Or Suzanne, I should say. If not, then I'd ask for a motion to approve Suzanne Hayden to fill the unexpired term of Summer Arlene House through January of 2023.
So
I'll make
moved.
that motion, Mayor.
All right, so I think Joe Buckman had a motion, and then Councilman Hart had the second. Councilwoman Hart had the second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Motion's carried. All right, let's move on here. Anything from the council members that need to bring before the council this evening?
Yeah.
All right. If not, then we've got a lot of cemetery deeds, and this is the start of a new year. Last year, our number of purchases of grave sites in our cemetery was way up over the previous year. So this is quite a few purchases here. We have, for one grave site, we have Penny Kreider, Latanya Marks, and Joseph and Judy Newton. And for two grave sites, we have Susan Davison, Joseph and Susan Alberry, Jack and Sheila Campbell, Francis Darlene Boone, Mary Riley, Regina Dennis, and Barry and Tina Thompson. Those were each for two each. And so we can approve those by unanimous consent. All right, thank you. And then I really don't have anything on the mayor's update other than to say, our prayers and thoughts and prayers and our wishes of condolences go out to our city attorney, Audrey Hayden. Obviously, as we all know, she lost her husband this past weekend, and the services will be later this week on Friday, and she will obviously be off for a while from her position with the city, but just want to let her know publicly that we are in her thought, that she's in our thoughts and prayers, and wishing all the best as she and the girls and her family and the McNamara family as they deal with this loss. So tough situation. We have talked to Audrey, and she made a point to let all of us know what the arrangements were. So that was nice of her to do that today. All right. If there's nothing else, I'll ask for a motion for adjournment.
So moved, Mayor.
Is that Joe?
That's Joe. Yes,
All right, thank you.
that's my job.
Councilman Buckman has a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Councilman Shekels, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. All